A missed flight, a selfless act in a chaotic airport. Her choice ignites a thrilling journey of purpose, forging unexpected bonds and a chance to reshape lives and her destiny. Welcome to Life Bond Tales. Like and share video to encourage us in creating such stories. Amara Johnson weaved through the crowded terminal of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, her heart pounding in rhythm with the sharp click of her heels against the polished floor. Her navy blazer clung to her shoulders, slightly creased, from the morning's rush, and her phone was glued to her hand, displaying last-minute tips for acing a high-stakes job interview in Seattle. At 32, Amara had spent years grinding in a mid-level marketing coordinator role, her ambition a quiet fire that burned beneath her composed exterior. This interview with a top tech firm was her ticket out of a career that felt like a treadmill, always moving, never arriving. Her boarding pass, clutched tightly, showed gate D12, and the overhead speakers announced final boarding in 10 minutes. She quickened her pace, dodging a family with a stroller and a businessman barking into his phone. Then, a voice cut through. The terminal's hum, soft, strained, but urgent. "Excuse me, can you help me?" Amara froze mid-step, her eyes darting toward the sound. Near a coffee kiosk, a young man leaned heavily against a wall, his right knee bent awkwardly. A backpack slumped at his feet. Ethan Carter, not yet 30, had a lean, athletic frame, his plain grey hoodie and faded jeans blending into the crowd. Sweat glistened on his brow, and his dark eyes held a mix of pain and calm resolve. He tried to shift his weight and winced, gripping the wall tighter. Amara's mind screamed to keep moving. Her flight, her future, her carefully planned life depended on it. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. "You can't fix everyone, Amara. Focus on you." Yet her feet stayed rooted. The crowd flowed around them, travelers with earbuds and rolling suitcases oblivious to Ethan's struggle. She glanced at her watch, 7 minutes left. Her chest tightened, but something deeper, something instinctive, pulled her toward him. Tucking her phone into her purse, she stepped closer. "What happened? Are you okay?" she asked, her voice softer than she intended. Ethan managed a faint smile. "Took a bad step getting off my last flight. Think I twisted my knee. Just need a hand to stand." Amara crouched beside him, her blazer brushing the floor. "Okay, let's do this slowly." She slid her arm under his, feeling the tension in his frame as she helped him up. He was taller than he'd seemed, his strength evident despite the injury. "Thanks," he breathed, steadying himself. "I'm Ethan. You're a lifesaver." Amara offered a quick smile. "I'm Amara. Where's your gate?" He nodded toward the far end of the terminal. "C28, way over there." Her heart sank. Her gate was in the opposite direction. Helping him would mean missing her flight. She scanned the crowd again, hoping someone else might step in, but no one did. Ethan's gaze met hers, not pleading, but quietly trusting. "I can manage if you're in a hurry," he said, though his grip on her arm suggested otherwise. Amara exhaled, decision made. "No, I've got you. Let's get you to C28. They moved slowly, her shoulder bearing his weight as they navigated. The terminal's chaos. Travelers rushed past, their indifference a stark contrast to the quiet connection forming between them. "You didn't have to stop," Ethan said after a few steps, his voice low. "Most people wouldn't." Amara shrugged, her arm aching but her resolve firm. "I'm not most people." They passed a flashing departures board, and she caught a glimpse of her flight status. Boarding. Her stomach twisted, but she kept moving, focusing on Ethan's steady breathing beside her. At gate C28, a flight attendant scanned Ethan's ID with a brisk nod. "Priority boarding, sir. Use the side ramp." Amara blinked. "Priority?" Ethan caught her surprise and grinned faintly. "Long story. I'm good from here, Amara. Really, thank you." She released him, her hand lingering, a moment longer than necessary. As he limped toward the ramp, she turned, her own gate now a distant hope. She ran, her breath shallow, her heels striking the floor like a metronome. Gate D12 was empty when she arrived, the screen flashing "Departed." Amara stood frozen, her boarding pass useless in her hand. Her phone buzzed. An email from the recruiter. "We regret to inform you the interview slot has been filled." She sank onto a nearby bench, the weight of her choice crashing down. She'd given up her shot for a stranger. Her mother's voice rang again. "You can't fix everyone." But as she stared at the empty gate, a small, stubborn spark flickered in her chest. Not regret, but something closer to pride. She'd done something right, even if it cost her everything. Unbeknownst to her, Ethan Carter, who carried himself with the quiet humility of someone who'd learned to blend in, was already noting her name, determined to find the woman who'd seen him when no one else did. Amara Johnson sat alone in her modest Dallas apartment, the faint hum of evening traffic seeping through the cracked window. The glow of her laptop screen cast shadows across the cluttered coffee table where a half-empty mug of tea sat cold. Her phone lay silent beside it, the recruiter's email still open. "The interview slot has been filled. No rescheduling available." The words stung, each one a reminder of the choice she'd made at the airport 3 days ago. She'd traded her shot at a dream job for a stranger named Ethan Carter, and now her career felt like a house of cards, collapsing. Amara leaned back on the worn couch, her fingers tracing the frayed edge of a throw blanket her mother had given her years ago. Growing up, her single mother, Elaine, had drilled into her the importance of self-reliance. Every decision had to serve her future, no exceptions. Helping Ethan had defied that rule, and yet Amara couldn't shake the quiet conviction that she'd done something meaningful. She closed her eyes, replaying the moment she'd helped him stand, his grateful smile, the way his calm demeanor had steadied her own racing heart. But now, in the stillness of her apartment, doubt crept in like an uninvited guest. Had she thrown away her chance for nothing? Her phone buzzed, snapping her back to reality. It wasn't the recruiter or her mother, but an unknown number. "Amara, this is Ethan Carter from the airport. I owe you more than a thank you. Can we meet to talk? I have something to discuss. No pressure." Her thumb hovered over the screen, her pulse quickening. Part of her wanted to ignore it. Ethan was a stranger, and she had enough problems without chasing mysteries. But curiosity tugged at her, a whisper of possibility in an otherwise bleak moment. She typed a cautious reply. "Maybe. When and where?" His response was instant. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the Beanery on Elm Street. I'll be there." Amara set the phone down, her mind a tangle of what-ifs. She stood and paced the small living room, her reflection flickering in the dark TV screen. She was 32, single, with a resume that screamed reliable but not remarkable. Her job at a mid-tier marketing firm paid the bills, but it left her soul hungry. The Seattle interview had been her chance to break free, to prove she was more than the sum of her safe choices. Now that door was closed, and Ethan's message felt like a new one creaking open. She stopped pacing and sank back onto the couch, pulling the blanket over her knees. Elaine's voice echoed again. "Don't trust strangers, Amara. Trust your plan." But what was her plan now? She opened her laptop, scrolling through job listings, each one less inspiring than the last. Her email inbox offered no new leads, only spam and a reminder to renew her car insurance. The weight of her decision pressed heavier, and she wondered if she'd been reckless, not noble. Yet Ethan's face lingered in her mind, his quiet strength, the way he'd called her a lifesaver without a hint of exaggeration. She glanced at the clock, 9:47 p.m. Sleep felt impossible, so she grabbed her phone and called her best friend Lila, who answered with her usual warmth. "Amara, you okay? You sound like you're carrying the world." Amara spilled the story, missing the flight, helping Ethan, the lost interview. Lila listened, then said, "You did something real, Amara. Most people would have kept running. That's who you are." The words soothed, but they didn't erase the ache. After hanging up, Amara stood at her window, watching the city lights blur through a haze of doubt. She thought of her mother, who'd worked double shifts to keep them afloat, never asking for help. Amara had inherited that stubborn independence, but now she wondered if it had blinded her to something bigger. Ethan's text glowed on her phone, a small beacon in the dark. She didn't know him, didn't know his intentions, but his message felt like a lifeline, fragile but real. She typed another reply. I'll be there. 2 p.m. Hitting send felt like stepping off a ledge. The next morning, she woke to a grey sky, the air heavy with the promise of rain. She dressed carefully, jeans, a crisp white blouse, her favorite silver necklace for luck. The beanery was a short drive away, a cozy spot with exposed brick walls and the scent of roasted coffee. Amara arrived early, claiming a corner table, her hands wrapped around a latte she barely sipped. She scanned the door, half expecting Ethan to be a no-show. At exactly 2 p.m., he walked in, no longer in a hoodie but a tailored jacket, his posture confident despite a slight limp. His smile was the same, warm, disarming. Amara, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. I wasn't sure. You'd come. She shrugged, masking her nerves. I wasn't sure either. He leaned forward, his eyes steady. I meant what I said. You didn't just help me. You saw me. That's rare. Amara felt a flush of warmth but kept her guard up. What's this about, Ethan? I missed a big opportunity because of that day. His expression softened, not with pity, but with understanding. I know, and I want to make it worth it. Amara's heart skipped, unsure if she was ready for whatever came next. Amara Johnson sat across from Ethan Carter in the cozy warmth of the beanery, the clink of coffee cups and low murmur of conversations fading into the background. Her latte had gone cold, untouched, as she studied Ethan's steady gaze. He leaned forward, elbows resting on the small wooden table, his tailored jacket a stark contrast to the casual hoodie he'd worn at the airport. His voice was calm but carried a weight that made her sit up straighter. Amara, I'm not here to waste your time. I'm the CEO of Horizon Airways, and I want to offer you a job. Her breath caught, a mix of disbelief and skepticism tightening her chest. She'd expected gratitude, maybe a kind gesture, but this, it sounded like something out of a movie, too good to be true. You're joking, she said, her tone sharper than intended. You don't even know me. Ethan's smile was small but genuine. I know you stopped when no one else did. That tells me more than a resume ever could. He paused, letting the words settle. Horizon isn't just an airline. We're building training programs for aviation jobs in communities that get overlooked, places where people don't get second chances. I need someone to lead our community outreach, to tell those stories, to make people care. I think that's you. Amara's fingers tightened around her cup, her mind racing. She'd spent years crafting marketing campaigns for small brands, making toothpaste and energy drinks sound life-changing. But this was different, bigger, riskier, and far outside her comfort zone. I'm a marketer, Ethan, not a world changer. I don't know anything about aviation or global initiatives. He nodded, unfazed. You don't need to. You know people. You know how to connect, how to make someone feel seen. That's what this job needs. His sincerity was disarming, but doubt gnawed at her. She thought of her mother's warnings about trusting too easily, about chasing dreams that sounded too shiny. Why me? She asked, her voice quieter now. You could hire someone with degrees, experience, connections. Ethan leaned back, his eyes never leaving hers. Because you didn't walk away. You saw someone in need and acted. That's the kind of heart I want shaping this project. Amara felt a flush of warmth, but her practical side pushed back. This sounds like a fairy tale, Ethan. What's the catch? He chuckled, a low, warm sound. No catch. It's hard work, long hours, and you'll be starting in Seattle next week if you say yes. But I'll be there, and so will a team to support you. Seattle. The city she'd meant to reach for her lost interview now dangled before her again, wrapped in a new possibility. She glanced out the window, where rain had started to speckle the glass, blurring the Dallas skyline. Her life here was safe, predictable job, small apartment, weekly calls with her mom, but it felt like a cage she'd outgrown. Ethan's offer was a key, but it came with a leap into the unknown. I need time to think, she said, meeting his gaze. This is a lot. He nodded, sliding a sleek business card across the table. It was simple, just his name and a number, no title or logo. Take all the time you need. Call me when you're ready. He stood, offering a parting smile. And Amara, You didn't lose everything at that airport. You found something. She watched him leave, the card heavy in her hand. That night she sat cross-legged on her bed, the card propped against her lamp. Her laptop glowed with research on Horizon Airways, a rising company known for its innovative approach to aviation and social impact. Articles mentioned Ethan Carter, a young visionary who'd built the airline from the ground up, focusing on underserved regions. It wasn't just PR spin. They were training mechanics in rural Africa, hiring women in South America, giving people tools to build better lives. Amara's heart stirred, but fear lingered. She wasn't a leader, not like that. She was the woman who double-checked spreadsheets and practiced presentations in the mirror. Could she really step into this? She thought of Ethan's words. You know how to make someone feel seen. She'd felt invisible her whole life, always proving herself in rooms where she didn't quite belong. Maybe this was her chance to change that, not just for herself but for others. The next day she walked to a park near her apartment, the air crisp with the scent of wet grass. She sat on a bench watching kids chase a soccer ball, their laughter cutting through her thoughts. Her mother's voice surfaced again. Don't chase dreams that aren't yours. But whose dream was this? Hers or Ethan's? She pulled out her phone, dialed Lila, and poured out the offer. It's crazy, right? Amara said. I mean, who offers a stranger a job like this? Lila's voice was firm. Someone who sees what you're capable of. You've been waiting for a spark, Amara. This might be it. By evening, Amara stood at her kitchen counter, the business card in one hand, her phone in the other. Her thumb hovered over Ethan's number. She thought of the airport, the moment she'd chosen compassion over ambition. It had cost her, but it had also led her here. She pressed call. Ethan, it's Amara, she said when he answered. I'm in. His voice was warm, steady. I knew you would be. Welcome to Horizon. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with the thrill of a door swinging wide open. Amara Johnson stepped off the plane in Accra, Ghana, the humid air wrapping around her like a warm embrace, a stark contrast to the crisp Seattle morning she'd left behind. Her new role as Horizon Airways head of community outreach had thrust her into a world she barely recognized. Sleek corporate offices traded for a dusty airfield where the Horizon logo gleamed on a newly built training hangar. She adjusted her lightweight blazer, her nerves buzzing as she followed Ethan Carter through the bustling facility. The hangar was alive with activity. Young women in navy coveralls tightened bolts on engine parts, while men barely out of their teens studied maintenance manuals under the watchful eye of instructors. Ethan moved with ease, greeting trainees by name, his presence both commanding and approachable. Amara trailed him, her notebook clutched tight, scribbling observations for the outreach campaign she was tasked with shaping. This is our first West African hub, Ethan said, pausing by a workbench where a trainee named Kofi demonstrated a wiring technique. We're training locals to maintain aircraft, but it's more than that. It's about giving them a future. Amara nodded, her eyes catching Kofi's proud smile as he worked. She'd spent her first week at Horizon's Seattle headquarters, overwhelmed by meetings and strategy sessions, but here the mission felt real. Ethan led her to a small office overlooking the hangar, where he pulled out a chair for her. I owe you an explanation, he said, his tone shifting to something quieter, more personal. Every year I go undercover in an airport, dressed down, no security, no title. I want to see how people treat someone who looks like he has nothing. You were the only one who stopped Amara. Her breath hitched, the memory of their airport encounter flashing back. You were testing people, she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and unease. Ethan shook his head. Not testing, observing. I grew up invisible, poor, underestimated, told I'd never amount to anything. I built Horizon to prove that wrong, not just for me, but for people like these trainees. He gestured toward the hangar where a young woman named Adwoa was leading a group through a safety drill. Amara's chest tightened, a mix of awe and humility washing over her. She'd always seen her compassion as a small act, but Ethan saw it as a spark for something bigger. Your job, he continued, is to tell their stories, Adwoa's, Kofi's, all of them. Make the world see what they're capable of. Amara swallowed, the weight of the responsibility settling in. She'd crafted taglines for toothpaste, not narratives that could change lives. Yet, standing in this hangar, surrounded by people who'd been given a chance to rise, she felt a fire kindling inside her. That evening, she joined Ethan and the trainees for a community dinner under a canopy outside the hangar. The air was thick with the scent of jollof rice and grilled plantains, laughter mingling with the hum of a generator. Amara sat beside Adwoa, who shared stories of her village, where girls were rarely encouraged to dream beyond marriage. "This program," Adwoa said, her eyes bright, "it's my wings." Amara's throat tightened, her pen pausing over her notebook. She wasn't just here to write press releases. She was here to amplify voices like Adwoa's. As the night wore on, Ethan joined her, his sleeves rolled up, a plate of food balanced on his knee. "What do you think?" he asked, his gaze searching. Amara looked out at the trainees, their faces lit by string lights, and felt something shift inside her. "I think I'm starting to understand," she said softly. "This isn't just a job, it's a promise." Ethan nodded, his smile quiet but full of meaning. "Exactly. And you're part of it now." Over the next few days, Amara threw herself into her work, drafting stories for Horizon's campaign, interviewing trainees and learning the rhythm of the hangar. She shadowed Ethan as he met with local leaders, his passion for the mission infectious. One afternoon, while reviewing her notes in the shade of a baobab tree, she caught him watching her, his expression unreadable. "What?" she asked, tucking a stray braid behind her ear. "You're finding your place here," he said simply. "It looks good on you." Her cheeks warmed, but she brushed it off, focusing on her work. Their connection was growing, rooted in shared purpose, but she wasn't ready to name it. Back in her temporary quarters, a small guest house near the airfield, Amara sat up late, her laptop glowing with draft emails to media outlets. She wrote about Kofi's precision, Adwoa's ambition, the way the hangar hummed with hope. Each word felt like a step towards something bigger than herself. She thought of her old life in Dallas, the endless grind for a promotion that never came, and realized she no longer missed it. This was where she was meant to be. As she closed her laptop, a text from Ethan lit up her phone. "You're doing great, Amara. See you at the opening ceremony tomorrow." Her heart skipped, not just from the words, but from the quiet certainty that she was no longer just the woman who'd missed a flight. She was becoming someone who could change the course of others. Amara Johnson stood backstage at the Cape Town International Convention Center, her heart thudding against the tailored lines of her emerald green dress. The hum of the aviation summit filled the air, a blend of murmured conversations and the clink of glasses from global industry leaders, journalists and dignitaries. At 32, she'd never spoken to a crowd this size. Hundreds of eyes waiting to hear her, Horizon Airways head of community outreach, deliver the keynote address. Her palms were clammy, but her notes, tucked into a slim folder, were her anchor. She'd spent weeks crafting this speech, weaving the stories of Ghana's trainees into a narrative that could inspire partnerships across continents. Ethan Carter stood a few steps away, adjusting his tie, his presence a quiet reassurance. He'd been by her side through the whirlwind of the past month, strategy sessions in Seattle, late-night calls about media outreach, and the electric energy of the Ghana hub's opening. Now in Cape Town, their mission was about to take a global stage. "You've got this," Ethan said, his voice low, his eyes holding hers with a trust that steadied her nerves. Amara nodded, drawing a deep breath as her name echoed through the speakers. She stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warm on her skin, and faced the sea of faces. "Good evening," she began, her voice clear despite the flutter in her chest. "3 months ago I was nobody, just a woman who missed a flight, chasing a dream that felt out of reach." A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd, softening the room. "But that day I learned something. Sometimes the detours in life lead you exactly where you're meant to be." She paused, her gaze settling on a young journalist in the front row, scribbling furiously. "At Horizon Airways, we're not just building runways. We're building futures for people who've been told they don't belong in the sky." The screen behind her flickered to life, showing Kofi tightening an engine bolt, Adwa leading a safety drill, their faces radiant with purpose. Amara's voice grew stronger, each word a thread connecting her to the audience. Our training hubs in Ghana and now here in South Africa are proof that talent isn't confined by borders or circumstance. We've trained over 500. Technicians, mechanics, and logisticians, people who are now lifting their communities with every plane they keep in the air. The room was silent, hanging on her words. She spoke of a trainee named Thandi, a single mother who'd learned to repair landing gear, her hands steady where her life once wasn't. Amara's voice cracked slightly, not from nerves, but from the weight of what this meant. This isn't about charity. It's about belief, in people, in possibility, in a world where no one is left behind. The applause erupted, not thunderous but deep, a wave of genuine connection. Amara stepped back, her chest heaving, as Ethan joined her on stage to field questions. His answers were sharp, visionary, but his glances toward her carried something softer, pride maybe, or something deeper she wasn't ready to name. After the session, the crowd swarmed them, executives offering partnerships, journalists requesting interviews. Amara navigated it all with a grace she hadn't known she possessed, her confidence blooming under the weight of their attention. Later, in a quiet corner of the venue's rooftop terrace, she and Ethan stood under a sky streaked with orange and pink. The city sparkled below, its lights a mirror to the stars above. Amara kicked off her heels, her bare feet cool against the tiles, and sipped a glass of sparkling water. "So you didn't just speak tonight," Ethan said, leaning against the railing. "You made them feel it." Amara smiled, her guard lowering in the soft evening air. "I felt it too. Those stories, they're not just mine to tell, they're ours." Ethan's gaze lingered, his usual calm giving way to a flicker of vulnerability. "You're making this real, Amara, more than I could alone." Her heart skipped, the air between them charged with something unspoken. She thought of their late-night talks in Ghana, the way his laughter had started to feel like home. But this wasn't the time, not yet. She turned to the horizon, letting the moment settle. "We're just getting started, aren't we?" she asked, her voice soft but sure. Ethan nodded, his smile carrying a promise. "We are." They stood, in silence, the city's pulse blending with their own. Amara felt the weight of the night, not just the speech but the path she'd chosen. She'd come to Cape Town as a novice, uncertain of her place, but now she stood taller, her purpose clear. The summit had opened doors, new hubs in Brazil, partnerships in India, but it had also opened something in her. She glanced at Ethan, his profile sharp against the fading light, and felt a pull she couldn't ignore. Not love, not yet, but a partnership that ran deeper than words. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for seeing me." He turned, his eyes meeting hers. "You saw me first." The moment hung between them, fragile and full of possibility. Amara knew this was more than a job, more than a mission. It was a life she was building step by step, with him beside her. Amara Johnson stood on the balcony of a sleek Seattle hotel, the city's skyline glittering under a late autumn dusk, its lights reflecting off the Puget Sound like scattered diamonds. The breeze carried a chill, tugging at her scarf, but she felt warm, grounded by the weight of the past 6 months. Her role at Horizon Airways had transformed her from a woman haunted by a missed flight into a leader shaping a global movement. The Cape Town summit had sparked new training hubs in Brazil and India, and her inbox buzzed with messages from partners eager to join Horizon's mission. Tonight, she and Ethan Carter were celebrating the launch of a scholarship program for young women in aviation, announced earlier at a small gala. Amara leaned against the railing, a glass of chamomile tea steaming in her hands, its warmth a quiet comfort. Ethan joined her, his jacket unbuttoned, a rare ease in his posture. "You were brilliant tonight," he said, his voice soft but carrying the same steady conviction she'd come to rely on. "Those girls in the audience, they saw themselves in you." Amara smiled, her eyes tracing the horizon. "I saw myself in them too. Scared, hopeful, ready to prove something." She thought of the gala, where a teenager named Priya had approached her, clutching a scholarship application, her eyes wide, with dreams of becoming a pilot. Amara had hugged her, feeling the echo of her own younger self, the one who'd once believed she could only climb so high. Ethan set his tea down, his fingers brushing the railing near hers. "You've built something real here, Amara, not just for them, but for you." His words landed gently, stirring something she'd been holding at bay. Their partnership had grown through late-night strategy sessions, shared meals in foreign cities, and moments of quiet understanding, like now, with the city humming below and the stars above. She turned to him, her gaze steady. "I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when I didn't." Ethan's expression softened, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his usual calm. "You believed in me too. That day in the airport. It wasn't just about me watching the world. It was about finding someone who'd walk with me." Amara's breath caught, the air between them electric with unspoken truth. She'd felt it growing, their connection, not just as colleagues, but as two people who'd seen each other at their most unguarded. She set her tea down, her hand trembling slightly. "Ethan, what are we doing here? This, us, it's more than the mission, isn't it?" He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "It's always been more. I didn't plan it, but I can't ignore it." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Amara felt her heart open, not in a rush, but like a flower unfurling after a long winter. She reached out, her fingers finding his, their warmth anchoring her. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "This life, this work, it's bigger than anything I've known." Ethan's hand tightened around hers. "Good. That's how you know it's worth it. We're not just building hubs, Amara. We're building a future together." The word together settled into her, a promise she hadn't dared hope for. They stood there, hands clasped, the city's pulse blending with their own. The moment wasn't a kiss, not yet, but it was an arrival, a choice to step into whatever this was, fully and fearlessly. The next morning, Amara walked into her new office at Horizon's headquarters, a sunlit space with a view of the Space Needle. Her desk was already cluttered with reports, photos from the Ghana hub, and a handwritten note from Priya. "Thank you for showing me I can fly." Amara smiled, tucking the note into a frame. She'd resigned from her old job weeks ago, closing the door on a life that no longer fit. Now she was drafting plans for the next hub in Mumbai, her fingers flying across the keyboard with a confidence she'd earned. Ethan knocked lightly on her open door, leaning against the frame. "Ready for the next adventure?" he asked, a playful glint in his eyes. Amara stood, smoothing her blazer. "Only if you're still my co-pilot." He laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "Always." They walked to a meeting room where a team of analysts and coordinators awaited, maps and timelines spread across the table. As Amara presented her vision for the Mumbai hub, her voice carried a new authority, shaped by the faces she'd met: Kofi, Adwoa, Thandi, Priya. She wasn't just telling their stories, she was living one of her own. That evening, she and Ethan sat in a quiet diner, sharing a plate of fries, the kind of ordinary moment that felt extraordinary because of who they'd become to each other. "To new beginnings," Ethan said, raising his glass of soda. Amara clinked hers against it. "To choosing them every day." As they left the diner, her hand found his, a small gesture that felt like a vow. The future stretched before them, uncharted, daunting, but theirs to shape.